Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
And we are
the FAIRtax Guys.
Hoping you enjoyed the last 2 weeks of our expedition to CPAC.
Yeah, that was good. And by the way, I like the new shirt you're wearing there.
Oh, yeah, that caught Alan Waters' attention, didn't it?
Yes, it certainly did. Yeah, they were
I'll
great.
tell you what.
And a fair warning to the members, especially the leadership of AFFT and Florida FAIRtax. Start planning for CPAC next year.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, there were only 3 of us in a crowd of thousands. My vision, if I could have my way, like at least 500 FAIRtax volunteers walking around CPAC. And where else outside of the political nominating conventions are you going to get that many political and media people together in the same place? So I would love to see AFFT and the state organizations try just to send as many people as they can. I know it can be expensive. The tickets to the event itself aren't that expensive.
Yeah.
But when you add travel and meals and lodging, that's where it really adds up. But you got a whole year to save for it.
Exactly. We got a whole year to plan.
Wouldn't you love it if there were like 500 of us out there? Every time Buck Sexton looked up, there'd be somebody walking by in FAIRtax gear. Every time Ben Ferguson looked up, there'd be somebody walking by in FAIRtax gear. When anybody looked up from the Fox Nation studio, there'd be somebody there in FAIRtax gear. That would send the message, hey guys, this is not a fringe issue and we want to see this done.
We got to do that. That's a very good point, Bob.
Well, I don't know if they're going to have it in Florida next year or not. They haven't decided yet. But even if they put it back in D.C., it's on my bucket list to ride the auto train. I'm going, even if it's back up in D.C. So, whatever. We need to get going.
Sounds good. All right. So, anyways, we're going to start out with Congress.gov.
I'm going to say one of the things we've missed for the past 2 weeks is Congress.gov, but don't think for a minute the Congress critters haven't been busy trying to mess with the tax code. And I found out something really crazy here. Earlier in the year, we ran across a bill that was to remove short-barreled rifles from the definition of firearms. Well, and I look back, I put that one in the Hall of Shame we're going to deal with at the end of the year, and it was H.R. 933. Now look at it, introduced yesterday, H.R. 1758, the same thing, amend the Internal Revenue Code to remove short-barrel rifles from the definition of firearms for the purpose of the National Firearms Act and other purposes. So I went back and said, wait a minute, let me look up this other number, 933, and now 933 has changed. Apparently, after you've introduced the bill, you can change it.
I guess so.
933 is now called the Home Defense and Competitive Shooting Act. But in either way, they're still going to try to remove the short barrel rifles from the definition of firearms, which is contained in the Internal Revenue Code, which has absolutely nothing to do with collecting revenue for the government, but it's there.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
All right, I know. You told me I got to speed through these, so we've got a lot of stuff to get to today. To amend the Internal Revenue Code to treat Puerto Rico as part of the United States for the purposes of determining whether real property qualifies for treatment as a like-kind exchange. That's H.R. 1742. And another one. To amend the Internal Revenue Code to allow accelerated depreciation of cash for certain qualified film and television and live theatrical productions in Puerto Rico. And we discovered this earlier, that Puerto Rico has an at-large representative in Congress. Her name's Jennifer Gonzalez Colon, I think is how that goes. I'm not sure she's got a vote, but she can introduce bills, and she introduced those two. And so you have to amend the tax code to treat a United States, what is Puerto Rico? They call it a territory or something? But to treat something that's already basically part of the United States as part of the United States for these things, which shouldn't be defined in the tax code to begin with. And I'll scoot down to one more. This is S683. This is in your tax code, folks. A bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to clarify that products derived from tar sands are crude oil for the purposes of the federal excise tax on petroleum and other products.
But that's an excise tax.
Yes, but it's in the Internal Revenue Code of 1986. They got to fiddle with it. Okay, I went as quick as I could.
Yeah.
And
all right,
we'll have some more next week. There's plenty of goodies. They're still cranking out close to 8 proposals a day to change the tax code.
Yeah, I figured it out. 269 I think they've been in session counting today. We're recording this on March 11th, 38 days. They're actually down a touch to about 7.1.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they've been working on these other things, which some of those are not so great, but at least they're laying off the tax code a little bit.
Okay.
All right, but still, that's 7 proposals today. Each day they're in session to change the tax code. All right, as if it's not big enough already. It's nuts. All right, and of course that lack of stability hurts businesses. They can't plan. They can't predict what's going to happen to the tax code next week, next year, or, in the 5 years. And so that lack of stability hurts businesses. They can't plan well enough. Right. And of course we can fix that by getting rid of the income tax and going with the fair tax.
All right, now I'm fixing to throw you in face first here. I hope you can swim.
Okay.
We got a question from someone. We always encourage people to write us with questions and comments about the fair tax. And I'm trying to find the original letter that came through, and I can't find it. You'll have to refer to the guy's name who put it in there.
I was just looking for it too, and I can't find it.
We get so much stuff here. But he was basically questioning, we talk all the time about how the embedded costs of the income tax amount to about 22% of the price of everything we buy.
Yeah.
And he was just questioning, okay, guys, where's the research to back that up?
Yeah.
So certainly a legitimate question, and we don't want to get too awfully wonky here. I mean, maybe Carrie Bowers would like to get into something here with a lot of numbers, or maybe Jade would, but we're going to try to address that.
Because it actually brings us to something else called relative purchasing power that we talked about before. But so I asked this question, and I sent it to Dr. Karen Walby. Dr. Walby is a board member of both the Florida Fair Tax and the national group, the Americans for Fair Taxation, and she is our research director. She's a numbers lady, okay? And she said, she kind of shied away from it. She said, now, there was a study done in the early days by Dale Jorgensen, and he came up with all the embedded costs as far as he was concerned, and it came out to about 22%. But he included in there the payroll tax and the income tax that the employee and the employer have to pay. Well, the payroll tax, half of it's paid by the employer, the other half is paid by the employee. But Professor Jorgensen assumed that the employer was going to benefit take the benefit of that, of getting rid of that, okay? That the 7.65 on the employee's part and the 7.65 on the employer's part, that the whole 15-point-something% was going to be a benefit to the employer. So that's how he came up with the 22%. You've got all these things that are going to be eliminated, and he said it's going to be, and this was, like 20-something years ago, okay? And so he said it's going to be 22%. However, there's a problem with that, because in the first book, Boortz and Linder said, okay, we're going to reduce prices by 22%. But they also assumed that the employee would get their entire paycheck. Yep. Well, you can't do both. You can't assume that eliminating the payroll tax is going to benefit the employer and then say that the employee is going to get their whole paycheck. It doesn't work. And several people wrote articles saying, hey, whoa, wait a minute. You can't do that, all right? You can't double dip on the benefit there. So, and it's funny that...
Okay, I found the guy who wrote through.
Okay.
I dug down far enough in my email.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Rich Germain, can you point me to a link or document that shows the research done on the embedded taxes we currently pay? I know that people often use the 22% amount. I'm trying to find the actual research done that shows the percentage in various categories by industry. So he says he's looked for the FAIRtax website and the internet, can't really find any research backing up the 22%.
Yeah, so I quickly sent off an email to all the FAIRtax people, leaders. Steve Hayes, the president of the national group.
Yeah,
he's also a board member here in Florida.
That's a Karen Walby question.
And Dr. Walby, yep. Well, Steve responded. This is interesting, but his second paragraph is very, very important here. Another point that is very hard to diagnose is the effect of removing all of the taxes and the taxes on taxes that are added to products that are created. Now, let's see what he means by that. For example, if a person who harvested the timber calculated that he needed to increase the price paid by the mill by enough to cover his 20% income/payroll tax, he would not just add 20% to the cost, but he would say 25% because he would have to pay the income and payroll taxes on the added price. And the mill would do the same math, and the next purchaser would do the same thing. So that's what he means by taxes on taxes, okay? And that's a real effect. It's hard to measure. It's very difficult to measure, but it's a real effect of the current income tax nonsense. And then his second paragraph, all of this would be eliminated by the fair tax, and that is why some people believe that many products will come down by as much as 22%. But there is no study to really support this, just common sense. Well, that's interesting because, some people want it carved in stone. Now, this is a response from Dr. Walby, okay? Briefly, Jorgensen wrote his paper for AFFT in 1997, but it was never published. AFFT did not get publishing rights as part of their agreement. He then retracted the paper when controversy broke out about the 22% drop in prices and workers receiving their gross pay, because, as we mentioned, you can't do both. A reporter, Pat Regnier, Money Magazine, pointed out that if all tax cost savings went to reducing prices, as was the assumption in the Jorgensen paper, then workers' net pay would not increase, okay? They would get the same pay that they got before because the benefit of getting rid of the payroll tax would go to the employer, not the employee. Now, I don't know if it's going to go to the employer and the employee, and I don't think anybody can really predict. What I can say,
market forces will come into play there, and
and the thing is, prices will be reduced, okay? And maybe prices will be reduced on the part of the employer. Maybe salaries will go up on the part of the employee. Maybe it'll be 50-50. I don't know. But there's two important things. First off, the government will have no role in how it works up. Like you said, it'll be the free market that determines it. All right? Secondly, people will benefit by this, whether they're employees, employers, shareholders. People will benefit by these reduced costs. Whether you drop the prices or increase wages, it's good for people.
Yes.
All right? And that's because, remember, corporations are made of people. They're not these brick and mortar things, in some strange part of town and so forth. Corporations are made of people, all right? And it's people that will benefit when the fair tax goes into effect. So, anyways, it's interesting what she says here. Neil Boortz continued to push the 22% drop and still does, despite my best efforts to convince him otherwise. Well, yeah, Mr. Boortz is a little stubborn.
A little? That's like saying the Titanic had a little problem with an iceberg.
So, anyways, it's the 22% is an estimate, as Steve said in his email. It's a common sense estimate. Exactly what happens with the payroll taxes and the employees, the employer's share and the employee's share, it'll be worked out by market forces. For instance, if the economy is booming and there's high employment and low unemployment, and manufacturers are pumping out their product, right and left, and they're searching for new employees. Well, okay, if there's a lot of companies looking for employees, wages are going to go up. They're going to have to. They're going to have to compete for employees and have a good wages benefits package, okay?
Mm-hmm.
If, on the other hand, the economy's in the dumper and there's, they're laying off people, it's going to have a whole nother set of forces on them. So
Correct.
we can't predict, but I can say that people will benefit, and people will always benefit from the fair tax replacing the income tax.
So it looks like it's reasonable to say that the 22% really does, that's what the embedded costs are in the prices we pay, but getting rid of the income tax won't necessarily mean that prices drop by 22%, because there are other things.
There are other forces.
I guess the original question that we can ask, Rich asked for a link to the actual research. Maybe the thing he's looking for doesn't really exist yet.
Exactly.
So sorry, Rich. We're doing our best here, and but maybe we could convince Karen to put some of this out on the FAIRtax website. Of course, that's her doing, not ours. Don't want to speak for her.
Yeah.
But
well, there are a lot of research papers. When you go to fairtax.org and you click research up above, it'll take you to, there's research papers, and Dr. Walby has written quite a few of them,
mm-hmm.
all right, on the effects on agriculture, manufacturing, so forth. How did they arrive at the 23% consumption tax? All those things. I mean, there's all kinds of things there that some stuff you wouldn't think of unless you're, a tax expert or an economic expert, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But
the thing people really need to look at is a relative purchasing power.
Yes.
That's where this whole discussion is leading.
Yeah.
And rather than worrying about, how much prices are going to drop, and because we really don't know yet until the market forces take effect, but we can stay with a high degree of certainty that people will have more purchasing power
mm-hmm.
under the fair tax than they currently do.
Yep.
The prices may, be a little higher. They may be, we're not sure exactly where they're going to go. But when you're getting your entire paycheck with no withholding, no payroll taxes, you're getting your prebate, your tax refund every month on the taxes you pay up to your spending to the basic
mm-hmm.
necessities, the poverty level, you're going to have more money in your pocket with which to pay whatever the prices happen to shake out to be.
That's right, and retired folks like us, when you say draw money out of your retirement fund, there's not going to be any taxes on interest and dividends, right? That's going to disappear. So that's going to give you a little more spending power. So a fellow by the name of...
going to put up this slide here and
yep.
let folks... And if you're listening on a podcast or one of the radio stations, I would suggest that you go to FAIRtaxGuys.com, and if you want to look at the numbers rather than just kind of hear them, because when you do a lot of numbers without any visual support with them, it can get off in the weeds pretty quick. So we apologize for that. But this is pretty cool, how the relative purchasing power,
yep.
which is what really counts under the fair tax, is better than under the income tax.
And that's what Dr. Walby has told us for years. She said you really need to look at purchasing power instead of just, compliance costs dropping and 22% and all that stuff. She said because everybody's going to benefit from the fair tax. And then Donald Koop, who is a fair tax advocate, and I'm not even sure where Donald lives, but he wrote up this kind of it's not really a spreadsheet, it's more of a PowerPoint, and on relative purchasing power.
Yeah, let's look at somebody that makes $500, earns $500 a week. Yep. $26,000 annually would be $500 a week.
Yep.
Gross.
Yep. Gross, and it's got a column for the current income tax and under the fair tax. So the wage is $500 a week. The payroll tax is 6.75, which under the current system would take $38.25 out of that, but under the fair tax wouldn't take anything because there would be no payroll tax and there would be no income tax, all right? So he's got the figure for the payroll tax that's taken out, the income tax is taken out, $45.14, and he's got it prorated, the prebate, all right? It's one person, all right? He gets a prebate of a certain amount. Now, this was done in 2016, so those figures have probably changed a little bit.
Yeah, we usually quote the prebate on a per month base. This is down onto a per week base, because we're talking about somebody making $500 a week. This is somebody's weekly take.
Yeah. So under the current system, there is no prebate. Okay, but under the FAIRtax, he would earn about $52.54 a week. That's the prebate. Over the 52 weeks, okay? Money in the wallet, well...
There's the one that really counts.
Yeah. Under the current system, after paying the income tax and the payroll tax and not getting a prebate, because there is no prebate in the current system, he ends up with $416.61. However, on the FAIRtax side, when we get rid of the income tax and we put the FAIRtax in, he's going to end up in his wallet with $552.54. Ooh, that's a significant difference.
Quite a bit.
Yeah. So now, keep in mind, let's assume that he spends his entire $500 on new goods and services. Okay. All right. He's not going to buy any used stuff. He's going to spend his entire $500 on new goods and services. Okay. Well, then, of course, under the current system, he's going to spend $500. But with the FAIRtax, he said the price under the FAIRtax is going to be about plus 13%, because it's not going to go up 23% because there are other forces. So according to Dr. Walby's figures, it's going to go up about between 10 and 15%. So he's figuring 13%. So it's $565. Now, what Donald Koop did here is he figured it out in terms of how many weeks he has to work in order to purchase that
$500 worth
that
stuff,
$500.
when he's only getting $416.
Yep. And under the current system, he would have to work 1.20 weeks to purchase $500 worth of stuff. So he'd have to work more than 1 week to purchase, $500 worth of stuff. Whereas under the FAIRtax, to purchase the $565 necessary for the purchase and for the the cost increased, it would be 1.02. So he is better off by quite a bit. He's got a 1 to 1.18 advantage under the FAIRtax. I know that's a lot of figures, and as Bob said, for those of you that are listening to the podcast or listening on radio, we encourage you to go to our website, FAIRtaxGuys.com, and we'll put this graphic up there. And then on the other side, he went through that with different family situations. One adult with a child, 2 adults with 2 children, and so forth. And in every case, the relative purchasing power of people under the FAIRtax is better than the current system. It varies, but in every situation he mapped out here, it's better for people under the FAIRtax.
And that purchasing power varies by different households because the prebate is based on household size.
Right, exactly.
Larger household, bigger prebate. Real simple there.
So that is a quick summary, because we have worked on this before. I went through our YouTube videos. I couldn't find the episode in which we did because we spent a lot more time in a previous episode. But I'm afraid I can't point you to it because I couldn't find it.
We've got so many of them in the archive now.
Yeah.
And us old guys can only move so fast. So.
But in summary, okay, don't worry too much about, all right, what's the 22% drop and so forth. Relative purchasing power is a more powerful indicator. It may not be as simple, but it's more accurate. All right? When you take all the research that's done by Dr. Walby and other people and so forth, all right, every family situation is better under the FAIRtax than it is under the current system.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's very important.
And you don't have to file an income tax return.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to keep
April 15th is another spring day with a FAIRtax.
Yep.
I love that.
Yeah. So
see, we're in the middle of tax season now. We can say that.
I want to give a shout out to Randy Fisher, because we got an email from him today. He got a hold of, I'm going to make this fast. All right, Byron Donalds is, we've seen him a lot on TV.
Yeah, he did not appear on camera with us at CPAC, but we did talk to him.
Yep. And he did sign the FAIRtax Pledge. And he has not, I checked today, we got 3 new co-sponsors for the FAIRtax.
Okay.
Yep. So we're up to 20, but Byron Donalds is not one of them.
When he found out Kat Kamek is on there, he said he would not be far behind. Those two have a little friendly rivalry going.
So Randy got a hold of somebody from Buddy Carter. Now, you'll remember that Buddy Carter is a congressman from Georgia. He's been a FAIRtax co-sponsor since he first got into Congress, and he is the primary sponsor, so his office is going to contact Byron Donalds' office and so forth. So we're putting a little pressure. I'm confident that Byron Donalds will co-sponsor.
Oh, I'm sure he will. There's video out there of him speaking quite highly of the FAIRtax.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think just the fact that Kat's got it and he's not there yet is good.
Yeah,
if nothing else, that'll drive him to do it. But he signed the pledge.
Friendly competition between Congressman Donalds and Congressman Kamek.
But he signed the pledge. He said he'd do it, so we have to believe he's a man of his word.
Yeah, he will. He'll do it. So, anyways.
We got about 2.5 minutes left here. Or, pardon me, about 3.5 minutes.
Okay.
No, 2.5. I got it right first time.
Yeah, okay. Join AFFT, all right, the national group, the Americans for Fair Taxation. Go to fairtax.org and you scroll down on the front page and you'll see Get Updates in a place where you can put in your contact information. You will not get spam when you sign up with the AFFT. They never sell or share your information with anybody, but you will get, in fact, today we got an email from AFFT, and the governor of West Virginia is pushing to get rid of their income tax.
Oh, good.
And go with a consumption tax.
So Alabama, Georgia, West Virginia, I think Mississippi's working on that.
Nebraska and Georgia. Yeah, you mentioned Georgia. Yeah. Okay, so it seems like every couple of weeks there's another state that they want to get rid of that nasty state income tax and go with a consumption tax.
Well, whoever does it first.
Yeah, first mover advantage.
There we go.
Yeah,
I do remember that.
So that's good. So that's the kind of information you'll get when you sign up at fairtax.org. And so you'll get those updates. You'll get all kinds of information.
And we do quickly want to remind everybody, thefairtaxguys@gmail.com is our email address. If you've got a question like Rich had that we can dig into, even if we have to toss it out and get some help with it, we can do that. We're going to dig into another one here next week.
Yeah.
Then we'll be working on that. TheFairtaxGuys@gmail.com. Of course, you can leave comments on our Facebook page. You can leave comments under any of our YouTube videos. And if we get some good stuff here, we'll dig into it.
Yep. Don't forget to go to the store, fairtaxstore.org, and buy some paraphernalia and show off your support for the fair tax.
That'll do it. They don't have quite as much stuff as they used to, but they got the good stuff there.
Yeah. So,
and that's going to wrap up this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio. Thank you again so much for watching and listening. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
We are the FAIRtax Guys, reminding you, as we always do, that the fair tax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it. Follow the FAIRtax Guys on social media and their own website, fairtaxguys.com, and check back every week for a new episode of FAIRtax Power Radio.